Hello, this is Vampire. For today's video, I want to talk about the flail and the blender technique. Okay, so people have shown interest in it, but they don't really understand what the heck it really is. So I'm here to explain that. So let me go ahead and start with the two right here. A of A, which stands for angles of attack, and AW, which stands for arm weaving. So the angles of attack and arm weaving, these are staple things that you practice in Eskrima. In fact, there's not a single Eskrima person that doesn't do this. This is like mandatory. It's part of the curriculum, and it is a big part of the curriculum. Okay, the angles of attack and arm weaving, very, very important. But what I want people to understand is the difference between academic training and real life application. Two totally different things, okay? So it's not like you learn some technique and then, hey, this technique is real life application and boom, you're here. No. You gotta learn it first, no matter what the heck it is. You always have to learn it first. And then to get to real life application, even though the arrow here is a very short arrow, this is actually a very long and difficult process. Okay, this is where you earn your, blood, sweat, and tears kind of stuff. So the more that you put in, the better chance you have for real life application. I'm not going to say you have a full guarantee. You never have that. Okay, depending on the situation, depending on the opponent, things can drastically change. There's too many unknown factors, too many factors that you can't control. But what you can control is yourself and your training. So you do that as much as you can to head in real life application as much as you can. That's all we can do, all right? So you go from academic to heading towards that direction, which you don't instantly go here and you don't go, there, I got it. I have real life application. My techniques are all ready for it. It doesn't work that way, okay? It's not a product you buy, all right? It's something that you craft, you work on, you constantly work on, okay? So the angles of attack and arm weaving, both of these are academic. So you learn it, and then you practice the skill of it, and that's what it is. It is in the academic side of training, okay? So what is the flail and what is the blender? Well, what they are is you get the angles of attack and arm weaving and you make them a little bit closer in this direction of real life application. That's what they are, okay? So the angles of attack is done with one arm. The flail is done with one arm. The angles of attack, a little bit more realistic, is the flail. The arm weaving is done with two arms. The blender is done with two arms. Arm weaving done a little bit more realistic is the blender. The blender done academically is the arm weaving, and the flail done academically is the angles of attack. Okay, so that is what essentially it is. So what's the difference between the flail and not the difference between the flail and the blender, because the flail is one hand, blender is two hands. I already answered that. So what makes the flail and the blender a little bit more realistic than the angles of attack or the arm weaving? Well, what it is, it really comes down to speed. The flail and the blender is rapid, very, very quickly done. And the other thing is, it's also a continuous, relentless motion. It is just, it keeps going and going for a very, very, very quick speeds, at high speeds, for a short amount of time. The reason why it's a short amount of time is because you can't possibly keep that up for a long duration. You're going to wear yourself out because it does cost a lot of energy. Okay. There is no perfect technique out there. Okay. Every technique has its pros and cons. The same with the flail and the blender. So one of its pros is it's really designed to, the flail and the blender is really designed to completely annoy your attacker. Okay, so if the bad guy comes at me and they're trying to attack me, then hey Dylan, hi Dylan. Okay, so if the bad guy comes and attacks me, right, the idea is I'm using the flail or the blender and I'm going rapid speed, and it is just going to get them off of their goal. So if they want to choke me or they want to stab me to death or whatever, I'm doing the flail and the blender so that it's going to distract them so much, and then I create that space and escape. Okay, so that's the idea. It is undeniable. They're not going to be able to resist it because I am attacking the weakest area of the opponent, which is primarily the eyes. Okay, so that's the idea of the flail and the blender. And if I have a weapon, even better, right? If it's something like just keys, hey, that's going to be to the eyes, is devastating. It's undeniable. So that is the pro. And the con is that it is not a KO move. It doesn't finish my opponent, okay? If my opponent is really serious and they are formidable, then that's not going to finish them. And that's all right. The goal is not to finish them. To finish somebody is not an easy task. It may not even be possible. If I'm going up against someone that's 250 pounds and they're an athlete and they know how to fight, it just, for me to finish them, it just may not even be possible. I'm going to need, a tremendous amount of advantage to do that. And that just may not be realistic. So, but for me to survive, protect myself, and then run away, this is a much more realistic expectation. And the flail and the blender can really, really help with that. Okay, so that is kind of the idea to give you guys. Now, what's wrong with the angles of attack or arm weaving? There's nothing wrong with it. If you are going to use that for a self-defense situation, it's going to look something like the flail or the blender, period. Okay, because remember, the flail and the blender come from that. Okay, it's just that the angles of attack and arm weaving they made it for you for learning purposes, and they broke it down, and then you have variations, and we have all kinds of ways to practice those. And once again, those are for academic training to help you get it into your muscle memory, to help you experience all kinds of different ways to use it. Once again, for academic training. So if I'm doing the angles of attack and I'm going boom, 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 like this, okay, so this is great and everything, but it's good. The skill and the practicing like that, and the Heaven 6, practicing like that is making me smooth and efficient in my motion. But in a real life combat situation, smooth and efficient is not the most important thing in combat, okay? So you could be smooth all you want, but the guy just jumps out at me and it's choking me in the throat or something, and then I'm being shoved against the wall or taken to the ground. Smooth and efficient right there is, it don't matter. What is going to matter is I go rapid fire on their eyes, on their face area with my keys. Something like that is going to really help me out. And that it doesn't matter at that point, smooth or efficient. What matters there is, do I have a technique that is able to be executed in that intense, in that very stressful situation. So that's where the flail and blender come in. And that's why you're doing it so rapidly, because it is going to be an intense situation and you are going to need that kind of speed. And you have to be relentless in doing so. So the next thing is the flail and the blender now. We're going to apply them into the 4 ranges of combat. So when we do that, once again, it heads a little bit more, even more so, to real life application direction. Okay, and that's what we're going to do here. So with the 4 ranges of combat, which is long range, medium range, close range, and ground, you get the flail technique, and the way you're going to do the flail in long range is not the same as the way you do it in medium range or in close range or in ground. So the flail becomes 4 different ways of doing the flail. So it becomes 4 different techniques, new techniques. They get evolved. And same with the blender. The blender done in long range, medium range, close range, and ground, each one's going to be different. It's not going to be the same. So once again, you evolve it, and you get 4 more techniques right there, with actually 4 different strategies as well, because each range has its own characteristic. Okay, so anyway, I hope that sheds some light with the flail and the blender. Thank you for your interest. Thank you for viewing, and take care, folks.